Hey, first of all, I hope you're not too distracted by Evie. I really enjoy watching her play with her toys, so I really don't want to interrupt her right now. But I also feel super inspired to do this video, so I could block her, I suppose. But I think a lot of you enjoy watching Evie, so I think I'm going to keep the frame just like this, as long as I can stay focused. I feel inspired right now because I feel a bit overwhelmed. And I've definitely felt the feelings of overwhelm throughout the majority of 2016 and perhaps a lot in the past few years as well. But I don't know. I almost feel like it's really strong. I think it's because I don't feel. I'm getting a message on Snapchat. Let me mute my phone. By the way, if you didn't know that I'm on Snapchat under Eco Vegan Gal, which is linked to down below. If you're on Snapchat, hit me up over there. I'm in love with it. Anyways, speaking of which, that's one of the platforms where it can feel really overwhelming. It's been really interesting to watch Snapchat evolve. I think a lot of people felt incredibly overwhelmed by Snapchat, so they didn't want to get on it. But now Snapchat's like the social media network to be on, so everyone's coming over there. And to me, that's made it feel really overwhelming. What was once a really short feed of friends, now whenever I go to my Snapchat feed to watch other people's snaps, there's just so many to watch. And not only are there more people posting, but because Snapchat's becoming so big, people are posting more snaps. So what used to be like a couple minutes of your day could easily turn into like half an hour of your day just watching snaps at a time, right? Like you could spend multiple times a day watching 30-minute episodes. It's pretty nuts. I feel like so much of the online world just feels overwhelming. And one thing that I've been doing this past week is I've had like this little rule in place that's been working pretty well for me, is that I'm trying to go on social media just to check my notifications and just to post. And I'm really doing my best to either not look at any content on social media, or I have two rules. One is I can only look at the first few posts that show up when I check. So when like you first go to Instagram, you'll see one photo there. Allow myself to look at that and maybe a few others. When I go to Facebook, I look at the first few posts in my feed, which are typically like kind of curated or more popular. And Twitter and all of that. Snapchat's a little bit different, but sometimes I'll do a quick skim to see who's posted that day, and whoever lights me up the most is who I'll click on and watch. If you're not using Snapchat yet, this might seem a little abstract, but that's actually really helped me, because for the past few weeks before that, what I would do is every time I would wake up, I would immediately check my notifications, which would then lead to me scrolling through Instagram for a while, scrolling through Facebook, watching Snap stories. And like I'd be spending an hour of my day, the first hour of my day in bed on social media. And while it was really interesting to catch up with friends, and it was nice to see trends that were happening, you want to stay in the know, you don't want to miss out on things. So that can be really useful. But what I found is that it was causing me more, for lack of a better word right now, harm than good. I found that it was really flaring up my FOMO, so my fear of missing out, because I would see people doing all of these things that sometimes I would wish I was doing. I would see people having opportunities sometimes I wished I had. And I would start to find myself feeling shrunken, and that good old feeling of not good enough coming up. And you know how that is for me if you've been watching this channel. The feeling of not good enough is an ongoing battle for me. And I, just like anything else that we're battling in life, we have to be aware of triggers, of gateways into it. And so for me, social media is really tough. That's a huge part of my career and my life. And yet using social media can often flare up my feelings of not good enough. And I don't know if this is something that you can relate to or not, but if it is, I would love to hear from you in the comments about this subject. I think that it's kind of something that many people feel, right? And yet we still engage in it all the time. We still post, we still comment, we still like, we still scroll through, we still pay so much attention to social media. And it's kind of I feel like I would love to have like a more of an open dialogue around this, but I bet that I'm not alone in this feeling of like feeling conflicted. Like, well, I really want to pay attention and I really want to be part of the conversation, but it's also kind of giving me anxiety and overwhelm and FOMO. And I feel like there's this push and pull, this tug, because there's always somebody who's doing something that either we haven't done yet, or we currently can't do, or we can't be in two places at once, or we chose not to do it. And now we're like, oh, I wish I had done that. There's just always something happening. And I think social media has shown us so much. It's opened up this world. My nose is really itchy. Let me itch it all at once. Maybe it'll go away. Before social media, we had such a limited view of the world. Our perspectives of the world were based on like what we'd see in the media, what we'd see in movies and television and in news channels, what we would experience ourselves when we traveled, what people we knew would tell us about their experiences. But now with social media, you can go onto Instagram and see what people are doing all around the world. You can go to Periscope and see live feeds from all around the world. You can go on Snapchat and see all these featured stories of people you've never even heard of before. And as exciting as that is, it's incredibly overwhelming to our hearts and to our minds because we're just not used to that yet. And now we're becoming more and more used to it, but yet it's still tugging away at us. It's still bringing up these natural emotions of envy and these natural emotions of wishing we could do it all, but knowing that we can't. And I wonder what's going to happen because obviously social media is just growing and growing and growing. Video is taking off, so that's just giving us even a more visual perspective on what's happening all around the world. And I also feel like there's this deep sense of competition. I was thinking about this earlier today because this is something that I've been battling a lot, seeing as my career is so based in all of this. I run Eco Vegan Gal full time. I have my other business, which I'll be telling you a lot more about because there's some major developments that have happened or are happening right now. So I can't wait to tell you about all that. And both of them are so heavily based in social media and content creation. And it's just interesting for me on a personal level because I love it, but it also feels emotionally draining and sometimes even detrimental to me. So there's this this push and pull of like, I want to do this, but how much is it? I want to do this, but at what cost? I think it's different for somebody on a personal level who's just kind of watching and observing and casually posting. But when it's like your full career and everything's based around it, and so much of your personal life is put into your career, it's intense. I'm curious if any of you can relate to that. And the thing that I was thinking about earlier today was that so many people can do this too. I mean, there's no reason why you can't make this your full-time career at this point. We're at a place right now where pretty much anybody can become a social media influencer, a content creator, a blogger, any of this. You just jump right in. If you have a computer, you can start a blog. You can start an Instagram account. If you have an iPhone or a mobile device with a camera on it, pretty much anyone can start in this. And if you are savvy enough to know what hashtags to use and what photos to take and what people to connect with, if you just kind of put some of these puzzle pieces together, you can grow your influence. And suddenly you're making money from advertising and you're getting sponsorships and all these huge opportunities are pouring in. But what I've noticed so much is that there's almost like the thing that you can't force and you can't fake your way into is authenticity. And what I'm noticing so much is that it feels like a lot of people are faking it till they make it. And they're being rewarded for things that may not be about themselves, their true selves. They might feel forced to do certain things because they're after a certain reward, they're after validation, they're after money. And then people start to manipulate themselves and the work that they're doing to fit into this mold. And then that mold becomes the standard, and everyone's trying to fit themselves into this mold. And I think for me, I don't want to be in that mold. The only reason that I've wanted to in the past, and currently, honestly, I still, part of me feels like I want to be in that mold, is simply because of validation, simply because there's part of my ego that wants people to approve of me, right? And yet there's another part of me that's saying, it doesn't really matter if people approve of me. I'm reading Marianne Williamson's Return to Love for the first time. And you can add that to the list of amazing books that I've read. I will link to it down below. I've talked about Eckhart Tolle's work. I've talked about a bunch of different books that I've read, and perhaps I'll share with you more. I'm only like a fifth of the way through Return to Love right now. Have any of you read it yet? It's so wonderful. And as I talked about in my last video, I've been going to church. I've been exploring my relationship with God and all of that, which is something that I felt resistant to in many parts of my life and felt confused by and all of that. So it's really been an interesting journey for me. And so much of all of these type of books that I'm reading come back to this idea of the ego. Wayne Dyer said it so well. I was reading his book, Living an Inspired Life, which I'll also link to down below if you want to check it out. In that book, he says that ego, EGO, stands for edging God out. And I believe it's in Return to Love, talking about how we don't need anybody to tell us that we're good. We don't need to do anything special to be validated, we don't need to get that approval because all of us are good already. And I feel that a lot of the things that people are doing on social media is based on fear. Or let me position this differently. It's looking for validation. It's looking for someone to say, wow, your life is amazing. And because your life is amazing, then you are amazing. And why do we want that? I think that comes down to fear. I think that comes down to us being afraid that if we're not accepted, we won't be good enough and we won't get the things that we want in life. So we start constructing our lives, molding our lives into something that we think will give us that validation. And yet, as Marianne Williamson puts it, her Return to Love, by the way, is based on this book called A Course in Miracles. So, not to give her all the credit, but she does really frame it beautifully. And so many people agree with this, like Wayne Dyer, for example, talks about this as well, is that, we are already great as we are. We're already perfect, if you want to say it that way. We don't need to do anything more to feel love. The love is already there. We just have to find that, right? And it just seems in social media that so many people are seeking out love desperately. And yet, in a way, they're almost getting themselves farther away from love because they're not being their true selves. If you were trying so hard to get validation and approval that you're willing to change yourself, to do things that don't feel authentic to yourself, you're changing yourself. And when you change yourself, when you're not your true self, when you're fake, when you're superficial, that's actually getting you farther away from that love that you're seeking. Because other people can't give us love, like love is within us. What's more important is to dig deeper to ourselves and find that love that's already there, and maybe strengthen the love with a higher force if you believe in that, like God, which is part of the reason I've been going to church, Yeah, and it's funny as I say this because, part of the inspiration for making this video tonight was me reflecting on this overwhelm that I've been feeling. And I think part of the reason I feel it is because I don't feel like I'm doing enough. I'm not creating enough videos. I'm not being consistent enough. I'm not posting on social media enough. I'm not, all of this stuff. There's all these things that I want to do. There's these things that I feel like I should do. And yet, as I'm speaking this, I'm realizing that I think naturally this year in 2016, I felt drawn away from that. Why is it that it's been so hard for me to post on social media regularly, to make videos regularly, except for this channel? I've been doing a really good job with this channel. I'm proud of myself. And it makes sense too from what I'm about to say, is that I think naturally it just doesn't feel authentic. It feels fake. It feels forced, trying to get the perfect photo with the perfect caption on Instagram, trying to make the perfect video for YouTube, trying to, have the right friends and the right contacts and write the right newsletters and all these different things that come along with being an online content creator is about shaping myself. And I feel like 2016 has been about getting clear on who I am. So instead of shaping myself, I'm just being myself truly and presenting that in my best way possible. And here I've been battling with these emotions of feeling like I have not been doing enough. But the reality is I'm probably doing exactly what I should be doing, which has been focusing on myself, is finding that love within myself. And I just felt this wave of emotion saying that, because I need to trust that the closer I get to that love within myself, the more I'll be able to share that love with other people. But I think what's happening so much right now in social media is, I don't know about you, but how much love do you feel on social media? There are some people out there that are great at sharing love, but from my perspective, for at least the people that I've been following and paying attention to, a lot of the times I leave social media feeling kind of insecure. And that doesn't feel like love. I know that's my own thing, but there are certain people whose accounts I go to that are so full of love that when I look at their content, I feel amazing. I feel that love come through. That's what I want to do on social media, really, because all of this other superficial, glittery content out there that looks perfect, that shows these perfect lives, that show these people having all these great opportunities and experiences, you can sense very frequently when they're shallow. And you can sense when those people haven't found the security and the love within themselves. You can sense the insecurity. You can sense that they don't really feel that good about themselves yet. And that's not to discredit them at all. I'm just saying that personally, I want to pay more attention to the deeper accounts, the people that are finding more of themselves and sharing more of their true selves, their authentic selves, because that's what feels good to me, and that's also inspiration for me to do the same. And I don't feel overwhelmed by those posts. Those posts actually light me up. Those inspire me. Those motivate me. So maybe the answer is just clearing out who I'm following. To be honest, a lot of people I follow or stay following, it sometimes feels so political. Like, I don't want to unfollow them because they're going to get offended. And it's like, at what cost is that? Didn't I do a video? It was on this channel, I think, right? Or maybe it was on the Venture channel. I can't remember. But I did a video, I think, last year about why I was unfollowing people on Instagram. And I didn't call anybody out, but I was just saying, like, what is the point of following people that don't make you feel good, that don't post content that lights you up, that helps you feel love? What is the point of following people that you're envious of? What is the point of following people who are always showing off the parts of their lives that you don't have, and they leave you feeling like low? Now, there's nothing wrong with following somebody who does all these things that you haven't done yet in your life if that makes you feel good. I guess it's also in the way that they express it. Some people can talk about exciting things happening in their life in a very joyous, open, welcoming way, whereas some people can talk about the same thing and do it as a look at me type of way. Like, guess what I got to do and you didn't get to do, right? Like, I know there's a fine line there because it also comes down to our perception of it. And that's part of why we need to focus on ourselves and grow so much as ourselves, because our interpretation of things always comes back to us. So I know for me, like, when I get those triggers, it's just a great reminder to say, hey, Whitney, this is some evidence that you've got some more work to do. Because if you're feeling triggered by this, it's not really about that person's intention at all. It's about whether, it's really just about the way that I felt about it. And when we feel something negative, when something kind of feels hurtful in our hearts, it's such a beautiful opportunity to work on that, to tweak it. And sometimes avoiding things so that you don't get triggered is helpful. But I personally would love to get to the place where I could look at anybody's Instagram or anybody's Facebook and be like, hey, cool, good for you, and not feel like I was missing out on it, not feeling like, it triggered me in some way or another. So that's another good lesson. So the two lessons here are: be authentic to yourself. Don't try to put yourself in some mold. Find out who the real you is. Dig deep. What is it that you want to say, and how do you want to do it, regardless of if anybody approves of it or not? Can you get to a place where you truly feel loved and like a good person without anybody else saying that, just knowing that that's just who you are at your core? And number two, when you get to that place you're also going to have such an easier time on social media because you'll be so secure with yourself and your life that it won't matter what anybody else is doing because you're going to be in that grounded place. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot to learn from this place that we're at as a society with social media, and it's ever changing. And don't get me wrong, I love it. Like I said, it's a huge part of my career, my passion. I just wish that I could separate more of my personal emotions from my professional emotions in these cases. But then again, I don't think I'd be where I am today if it weren't for the merging of my personal and professional life, right? Okay, well, those are my feelings today. I would like to talk more about my church experience, like I talked about in the last week's video, and my relationship at some point as well. Thank you guys so much for your comments, for watching, for just being part of this vulnerable expression of myself on this channel. It's really a beautiful gift to me to be able to share like this and to be able to, show you my authentic self, even when it feels uncomfortable, which it does almost every time I do one of these videos. But that's why I'm consistent with this channel, is because ultimately I want to be authentic like this, and this channel helps me build up that courage. So thank you so much. I can't wait to hear how this video resonated with you, so leave your feelings in the comments. Check the description field if you want to check out that book, Return to Love. It is excellent. If you've read it, I would love to hear how it's affected your life. And if you have any other books you'd like to recommend, I have more than enough to read right now. I'm reading like 10 books at once. I really should finish one before I move on to another, but that hasn't been happening lately. So recommend them, and hopefully I will get to them sometime very soon. Okay, until the next video, I have a feeling I'm going to record another video this weekend. No promises, but if I do, you'll see that one, and if not, I will see you here again next Sunday. Until then, bye.